All right, today we've got Luke with us. Luke, thank you so much for being here. I want to dive right into it. Tell us a little bit about who you are, a little bit of the background about you especially, and then we're going to dive into your story.
Okay, all right. My title, if one has a title, is brand storyteller and brand realignment specialist. So what I do on a daily basis is help brands uncover their authentic brand story, and with that, then they can create raving fans. That's my role. Me as an individual, I'm born and bred in Sydney, Australia. I have a beautiful wife with a child on the way in September. I live in a great area, so peaceful. I'm so grateful for where I live. It's beautiful. There's water nearby. It's a pleasure, and I work from a home office. This is my home office. So, I guess that covers me. I'm very big into transformation. That's my purpose. If you scratch the surface for me, you'll see there's a video somewhere where I talk about purpose. It's very important to me. Like Simon Sinek says, people buy why you do something, and that's the impact point. So
It's funny. I think that's one of the key trigger points of how we met.
Mm.
I remember that when we talked on LinkedIn. I think we connected on LinkedIn. And then I remember that one of the first things is you sent me a video because I asked you about your why. I remember that very clearly. I asked you about your why, and you sent me the link to that video. And I watched that video and I said, I want to get to know this guy. So I think that's a really important side note as well of how this relationship came into place, because it's a very impactful relationship as well. And let's talk about your story a little bit. So let's rewind a little bit. I know a couple of things already, but I'm also curious to dive a little bit more into this. Sure. So let's rewind a little bit to the start of where you feel it's most relevant.
How far? Like, I'm 40, so we can go back to when I was 6 if you want. Look, I say I'm a trained graphic designer. So 15 years ago, I graduated from design college with an advanced diploma thing in graphic design. So at that point, I became very passionate about branding and digital. So what the web could do. I was entrepreneurial. I left there with 5 web projects. I graduated with 5 web projects. I grabbed some of the best guys that were there and started a company, which is very foolish in hindsight, because it was then every lesson was my financial lesson. So good but bad. I went back and I taught at that college, and I also had spoke to graduate classes and advised them not to do that. The key is to go and learn on somebody else's dollar. Anyway, so as a career, that's where I started to get into my own. I did mess around a lot before that and was fairly aimless. But yeah, I guess another key thing for me was I got into NLP and motivational audio. I've heard Tony Robbins' first Awaken the Giant Within, and that sort of set me on a path of discovering of language and development and that kind of stuff. And then one of my friends who was also aligned with that told me that if you read 100 business books, it's the equivalent of an MBA. And the Tony Robbins net time thing, where like I was training a lot or driving, so I would just listen to audio books continuously. So every book has its impact, and every day I'm grateful for a bunch of different things. That's a practice that I do with my wife now. So every day at dinner, we sit down and we talk about a bunch of things, but one of the thing we end with is what are we grateful for? I'm constantly referencing authors who dedicate big chunks of their life to put together some wisdoms that just are so impactful. So yeah, books are key. So evolve from being the technician, being the designer, to being the entrepreneur. Started and failed or learned from a number of different businesses on the way, and had some really cool people work for me, worked with some really cool people, did some crazy innovative projects, a lot of blue sky projects, amazing things. Yeah, a lot. I guess that's been the course. So growth, education, innovation, transformation. So yeah, very different person that I am today than I was back then, as we all are if we're open to growing. So
yeah, absolutely agree. So maybe let's rewind a little bit or forward from that point to where you mentioned last time we talked in the case study we did together about the business that you had to close, and then from that path on what's happened with the agency now, and what's happening with the new venture that you're building.
Yeah. So what is it? There's a phrase: the stranglehold of the business is the psychology of its leader. I think that might be a Tony Robbins thing. I don't know, but anyway, it's stuck in here, and I didn't realize how limited I was with certain things. And last year, I kind of I put it out there for change, and shit got real really quickly. I had a number of big projects that were verbal agreed to start, and they all evaporated at the same time. So it put me in a very, very precarious position, and I had to act, and the act was to close that business, or as it turns out, that version of the business, which very, very painful. It's a huge thing when you got a bunch of people relying on you, but it did offer me some huge insights into the people that I had working with me. And once you're out of a situation, you can see it for what it was. And there were some very taxing energies in that business. So while it was painful, it was very liberating. So so that at that point, it's like it was meant to be. Everything happened very quickly from that. It closed fairly smoothly and nicely, on good terms, and everything financially good. And I went to work for somebody, and that turned out to be another lesson. I don't like to speak ill of anyone, so I'm not going to elaborate too much on that, other than that it didn't work out because of a cultural fit. And the big lesson for me there is that how you train and nurture your people is so critical. Right? Having the right people on the bus, the right team, the right people, that it makes work fun, and the results that you produce together are far more than if you pressure people and have a culture of lunacy, which is the best way to put a lot of cultures. I've seen other companies that have similar culture, and it's just crazy. It's a perfect example of what not to do. So sometimes we're shown that so that we can point the other direction. So that didn't work out, but again, there were some lessons there. But at the same time, I was growing something on the side, and that was an agreement with my boss at the time, is that those two things wouldn't cross, and they wouldn't. They were kept clearly apart, which was good. But it grew that was surpassing what the other was producing for me in revenue, and also how I feel about positive, right? So impactful. So yeah, and then the timing of your Linked Revolution, it was just perfect. It was the week when I'd finished up there, and I saw that, and I missed the start date, and I messaged you and went, hey, I want in. Can I get in? And got in, and I committed to that at that time. I spoke to my wife and I said, look, I can go and get another job somewhere. Or I've got this thing going again. It's a new, there's potential here to do things completely different. All I need to do is just buckle down and focus on it. So, you know, your program, like I said, it was quite timely. It wasn't, I think I've had this conversation with a couple of people that have done your program, is that it's not necessarily, revolutionary, but because we're all kind of doing it, or the people that are using LinkedIn are doing it, but what I needed was a process that I could sort of refine to, right? Because I was doing it ad hoc. So it worked quite well for me, and opportunities came up, and growth happened. And it was, you know, just having that success doing that with you, it opened me up, and I then committed to a coach because I was getting growth, and my typical me of the past would have just backed off the accelerator. So instead I just went, no, screw that. Let's see how fast this thing can go, and got a coach and put the throttle down. So since then, wow, I don't know how to summarize the growth and the development that's happened. I mean, you think about what a business needs to scale. There's so many things. You need the people, the systems, the processes, the brand. You know, each of those things needs to be done in a way. And I'm telling you stuff that, you know, and most of the people listening would know this. But as a business owner, how often do we stop and do that for our business?
Yeah.
So I know that my last model, I mean, some of the things, and when my assistant watches this, hey Z, you know, one of the best things I ever did was take a full-time assistant. And you think in the 13 odd years prior, I'd not had one, right? So I'm managing I'm getting granular on stuff that's just, all it does is cloud what you do, you know, cloud what you need to be focusing on. So it's just things that approaching the business from a fresh slate, how I want it to be, and then have some advice on optimizing that. And now it's not quite there yet, because it's always a work in progress, but it's much closer, and it's going in the right direction. The interesting thing, it's allowed me to get more into my purpose, because I'm not having to deal with the things that fill your day, right, unnecessarily, or fill my day unnecessarily. And I watched that. There was a period when I was working for that other guy, and my purpose video, I felt like I was not authentic on that. But I watched it again the other day, and I feel like I'm even more authentic on what that video was. So the target's gotten a bit bigger, the goal's gotten bigger. It's very, very much. So it's like I set intention with that, and everything's just come into fruition. So
that is one thing I like about videos, because I know exactly what you're talking about, because I've done videos in the past, and, you know, sometimes these days I feel like, okay, that's so outdated, you know, let me, you know, get it off there, or something like that. And I watch it again and I go like, you know, this is still the core. Nothing's ever changed. But it's easy for us to think we are sort of like not just evolving, but sort of like moving and different paths and everything. But there's no different path. There's one path. We're on that one path. That path is already set up for us in terms of the purpose. There's nothing besides that. It's just that one path. And that's why I love these videos, because we can do something 3 years ago and now look back and say, okay, you know, the technicalities of the things are different. Maybe the vehicle is different now, but at the core, it's still the same. Like 3 years ago when I talked about connections, you know, And connections, I'm a connector. That's what I'm born to do. That's what I'm here for. And it never changed. So that's a really interesting thing. So let's dive a little bit into, so you've built the branding agency, you're scaling it now, and it's interesting that you said, it's still not there. Well, we had this conversation before about perfection, right?
Yeah. Look, it's outstanding. It's 80%. But there's the thing that is still limiting my business is me, right? And I know that. And the question is, how do I? And this is the question for everyone in a business: is how do you replace yourself? And it may not be. And I've talked to this about my coach. I'm not going to find another me, because my journey has been my journey. There's not going to be somebody that is exactly where I am, or that has the same skill set, or, well, the master of none that I am, right? So how do I break that into, and we're talking about this with you, is the role that you put forward. You had this dream role, but really it's two roles, right? So think about how do I replace me is, okay, let's break that into employable roles. And I'm doing that and developing the processes and the inductions and everything that needs to be there.
Okay, so this is great. So here's what I'd love to do. Let's talk about the new venture first that you're building. Let's dive a little bit into that. And then I would love to dive into how to replace yourself, because that is sort of the path of what you're on within that business. And I think that would be immensely valuable for people to hear more about that. So let's dive into the new venture a little bit more. And also, I'd love to hear, you're building this agency, you're scaling it, you're growing it. And I know you've got a couple of people in place, for the delivery, for your assistant, things like that. But still, there's a lot of effort required, and there's a lot of things that need to happen essentially in order to scale that. So how do you, first of all, what are you building? What is the new venture? And how do you find time to actually do that?
Okay, so we're talking about the social purpose one?
Yes.
Okay, which is the end user will see an app, a mobile app called Brandlight. Right? So, well, maybe when this video is viewed in 3 years' time, it'll be something, and everyone will know it. The purpose of Brandlight is, and the reason why the name is Brandlight, and it's caused a lot of, it's gone through a lot of iterations to get to that point. What it is I'm feeling that there is a groundswell for conscious consumers, right? So people want to buy. I want to support brands that care, that have they don't have to be a profit, a not-for-profit. They don't have to be a complete profit for purpose, but they do have to have a social contribution that it is somewhere in their bottom line, right? So it's something that everyone in the company is involved with. So there's a greater good that comes out of it other than just money, right? So I want to support that. I know that there's a trend, especially with millennials, to want to support something with purpose. Now, the purpose of this app is to allow me to find these businesses. So when I want to buy a new shirt, for example, like I like Ralph Lauren polo shirts because they fit really well, but I don't. After seeing some documentaries, and I'm sure that there's that's governed by the most profitable production that there is, rather than rewarding the complete supply chain fairly, or using necessarily sustainable cotton, organic cotton, that kind of thing. So I want to be able to find a brand, and I don't want the brand to be the one that tells me that it's good. So I want people that like me to rate brands. So what Brandlight is the gamification. So you can come in and do two things. One is, if you're in the community, you can just play it and you can get like scores, kudos points to raise in the community by just submitting and rating brands. So you can go, like mention, X, Y, Z. I don't want to say anyone in particular, but actually I'll say something good. Like Tom's, the shoes, one pair of shoes goes for everyone that's bought, right? That's it. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Yeah.
So you look at that brand and if you know that, you go, that's a light brand. So you swipe it to the light side. Or if it's dark, you swipe it to the dark side just to dismiss it. Or if you don't know it, you flick it up. Or if you know more about it, you can deep dive and go into the benefits of the product for the consumer, the supply chain, the actual stated purpose, where the money goes, that kind of thing. So it's 5 axes, and there's a bit more about it on the site. But playing it to rate it, and it's all geo-targeted so that for you it's relevant to what's in your area, because there's no point you seeing brands that are only available to me in Sydney. So geo-located, and then you can search, right? So you can find a brand in a particular niche, or you can search for a brand and see what its rating is, because what will end up, a brand will have a brand light score, right? So I want that to become a thing, a measure of global consciousness for corporations. It's like a TripAdvisor for purposeful brands, right? So I'm building that. And, I've had some conversations with some marketing professors around the world, because I see it as being something that can provide just massive amount of insight for brands, right? You think about like a large corporation that's multinational, they can pick up what the sentiment is in one city versus another, right? So the reason why I'm looking at that is because I realize for global reach, and I want this to have 100 million users. You think about how powerful that would be, how changing that would, like how much of a catalyst for change in corporate governance, right? If it becomes a thing where people are looking for that and that's the criteria, then it'll impact the way that people look at business, right? And think about the flow on from like how many lives will get impacted positively when that becomes the social norm. So that's the big view. But any monies that it generates, for me, it's not a not-for-profit, because I don't know how to run one of those, but I have a goal to transform 10 million orphans' lives, right? So after funding it, anything that is like hosting and support and all that kind of just cost, everything else is going to go to orphans. So then I get my impact, right? So Brandlight, domain brandlight.co. So yeah, so we'll see that. Brandlight.co, and .org, but the co is where it's gonna reside. So we're working on the MVP for it at the moment. Putting the key things in. Got some beta groups set up around the world. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. There's a few more monetization ideas in it, because it needs to produce. It can't just run on hugs and kisses, because haven't found a way to convert those to dollars yet. So
and I think that is such an important distinction, and I think that's beautiful that you mentioned it. And I think you said it perfectly. It can't just run on hugs and kisses, because we talked about this in the past. There's the group that believes that everything just runs on hugs and kisses, and then there's the group that believes that everything has to be monetized, and everything that's monetized has to be monetized to monetize more monetizable things.
Yeah.
Exactly. So and there's a lot of gray in the middle, right? And I think that's what I find so incredibly inspiring about you, is that you are operating in this middle. You bring this business background with you. You have a skill, you have a talent and a skill. You've developed a skill for business. You've developed that skill obviously over the past years. Otherwise you wouldn't be here where you are today. And then you've also got this very, very clear purpose. You've got this very big clarity on purpose and your calling and things like that. And I find that's where the beauty comes together, because it's like I just talked to a friend of mine yesterday. We talked about growth for the sake of growth, personal development for the sake of personal development. I'm not big on either of those, because it's like an artist that that creates music, but that music never meets an audience. Like to me, that's not art. That is creating something at home and hiding it from being judged. And I think
it's masturbation.
Yeah. Okay. That's an interesting one. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. It is. And that's the same thing. That's why I talk so much about impact. That's why, it's why I'm not big on social, because you can be social without having an impact. That's why, obviously there's different terminologies. There's like, when I talk about impact, somebody may think it's an asteroid that hits Earth, right? And other people think about positive change. So it's only just words, but I just wanted to point that out because I think that is so incredibly important for a lot of people, especially in the coaching, consulting, speaking community. Because people usually in that field, they come from this sense of purpose. They want to give, they want to create. But I know from my own experience and from the people that I know very often, a lot of people have challenges with receiving and with actually feeling comfortable with the topic of money. That's something that I've just hired an abundance coach a couple of weeks ago. Money mindset. Talking about money mindset. I grew up in a family where my parents, talk about the UBS boss making that much money and he doesn't deserve it and all of that crap, right? And it's just, I think it's just such an important distinction. So, so
it is. I had that conversation with my coach recently. It's like money's neither good nor bad, and it's a tool. It depends on the person that receives it, how much or how it's gonna, or what context it takes. The best person can do the best with the best money. So as the worst person can, the other side of that.
Exactly, and I think here's the key distinction. Because like one of the key shifts I made over the past couple of weeks is going from money flows to me to money flows through me. Because if I get to be the amplifier of money, I know I'm good. I know I'm pure love. I'm good. You know what I mean? I'm a good guy. So I know that when money flows through me, it's a positive impact amplifier, and that's a very different perception. So it's just I guess I just wanted to bring it up because so many things that happen and so many things that we think about, it's just a matter of perception. So let's dive a little bit more into I'd love to learn a bit more about the lessons that you learned. So instead of talking about how to replace yourself, I'd love to talk about the lessons that you learned from working with the team before and working on, becoming more effective. And then also the distinction between then and how it works for you now.
Okay. That's big. So let me try and break that one down. Okay. I'll just take a typical scenario from agency mode before, and my team were quite reliant on me a lot during the process, and it was because I was holding on to the reins too tightly. I was involving myself in too many things, micromanaging, not freeing my people to do, or for the most part, not freeing my people to do what they were good at. I see that now. So the example would be a project would freeze or stop because the designer was awaiting me to comment on how things were in it or add ideas to it. And I might be out for a day or two with seminar meetings or whatever. So stuff would stop. And that's money not hitting the bank account because it's not delivered. So that's just a simple example. the other is back to the assistant thing. So I would have a to-do list, and it involved everything to do with running a business. So you name it. I just sit and think about, if you wrote down everything that you did today for your business, because I know that, and the people that are watching this, do that, write it down, and look at that and go, what could I leverage that to? Who could I leverage that to? Is there a technology that can handle that? Is there somebody that can pay $10 an hour, or get them off Upwork, or Outsourcely, or whatever, to, if you think about it, liberate me from that task, right? So I at that point, I didn't. So I would have those, and it would make me either have to stay back to do things that I would be the one that was working the hardest in the business, working there, up late at night, in there early. My lifestyle was getting imposed on by the tasks that I didn't need to be involved with. So that was before. And of course, I was stressed. I didn't realize I was stressed because I was like the frog that's put in the pot and the temperature rises. He'll stay there and get boiled because he doesn't feel the temperature rising. So I was the frog in the pot, right? Now, after doing that exercise and writing down everything that I do, I delegate it. And I look at my calendar now, and the things that are there are the strategy pieces. They are the team development pieces. They are the systems pieces. So those things, the business development that I'm doing too. There's things that I haven't replaced yet. Like we're talking about the replacement, but I've compartmentalized what they are. So I know what they are, and on my plan, because everything can't happen immediately, because good people are, the right people appear not according to my timeline. They'll come when they're ready, right? No, when they're meant to. So I've got a couple of awesome people that I'm about to employ now. So next week at least one of them will be on board, and that will free up something and accelerate another angle, another avenue. So there is a plan, and the plan is to replace myself from certain things, but not to get me out of the business altogether, because I love what I do. Like, for me, helping a business owner, whatever level that they're at, helping them discover the story that they have, their authentic story, their why, right, and turning it into something that can be said masterfully and authentically, and that really resonates. And I know people that are listening, they have the same mindset, right? So for me to find that, like, I love that, right? So I'm not going to stop doing it. But the difference is, if there's 2 or 3 of us doing it, this business can create more impact, right? If you look at a long play, right? So I look into the distance and I see brand like just smashing it, with 100 million users. I think about the cool insights that are going to come out of that, right? So I can do reports on demographics and trends and industry types and whatnot. And I'll be interviewing the light brands, and there'll be a whole series of crowdsourced videos of celebrating light brands. And it's going to become this thing, this huge thing, that there's going to be lessons out of it that can be turned into a training for a business that's starting. How do I be a light brand, right? How do I kick off with a brand light score of 10 or whatever it might be, right? So there is an online training. There is the mastermind group of businesses that want to accelerate, that need to be serviced by a system, a team, a culture, rather than just me, because I've only got, I only want to work 4 hours a week, right? Or not 4. The 4-hour week, I want the 5-hour week. I want to do an hour each day with a core group, and that's it. And the rest may not be actually paid work, but I want to still be doing stuff. So that's my goal there, right? So for me to achieve that, I need a team. I need people that are smarter than me, people that are better than me at certain things, and I need the system to ensure that they're going to get delivered awesomeness, not averageness. How do you make, I say, realign your brand to create raving fans, right? My coach pulled me up 2 weeks ago, said, are you doing for your business what you're doing for other businesses? And I had to sheepishly say no. But that there on the board is my map, right? So I've taken my action and I'm doing that, and I've got my team now working on that. So it is what I do for, or it's part of what I do for clients, is building that that pipeline, that automation, that funnel, that brand story, that value. So it's all coming together. All the right people are coming in, and I'm replacing myself and developing the processes and the systems and everything there, so that the tap can turn on, and just the level of awesomeness just increases, because you got to have the framework.
It absolutely. So here's something I'd love to dive into, because here's a big lesson that I just learned a couple of weeks ago. I've had an assistant for 3 years. Like, that's one of the first things I did when I started my business. Like, after a couple of months, I had an assistant, because I was going on vacation for 2 weeks, and I was like, if I don't have somebody managing my emails, my business is gonna die, and I'm gonna starve, and all of that stuff. So obviously, on those 2 weeks that I was away, nothing happened, right? But still, I hired my assistant back then, and for the past 3 years, she's done really amazing. But I outsource all the operations, all the routine, everything that's outsourced completely and systematized and everything. But I've never been able to really outsource or delegate real project, mostly because I didn't trust. And also because I went totally wrong about delegation, because I was always delegating processes instead of actually delegating responsibilities. So I just hired, or actually in 2 weeks, I'm going to hire somebody new who's going to work with me on projects. So she's my online marketing manager, basically. And she's going to take over a lot of the projects, create the projects, initiate things, and all of that. And I thought about what kind of projects can I delegate to her, and I came up with only a couple. And I was like, that's really strange, because then I wouldn't need somebody. And then I suddenly realized, well, let's take a step back. And I realized, well, the problem that I always had was I was always the bottleneck, because all the responsibility was always up to me. All the KPIs, everything in my business was always up to me. That was always my part, and I never delegated any of that. Now, though, what I'm doing with her is I'm delegating a major part of that responsibility, because now everything changes completely. Now suddenly people are no longer responsible for publishing that blog post at that date, but actually making sure that twice a month an interview is published on my blog, once a month an article is published on LinkedIn. Now, if that's their responsibility and I don't deliver the content, they have to be reaching out to me and say, Daniel, where's the content? You were going on vacation in 2 weeks. Where the hell is the content? We need more content. Now it's a whole different game. So I'd love to talk a little bit about that, because I mean, you've had like 10 times more experience in managing teams and leading teams and building teams than I've had in my own business. So can you elaborate a little bit on that?
You nailed it there. It is about responsibility, and it is about defining some key things. You say the vision, mission, values, right? Like the typical stuff that every business does and puts in a drawer. It's really about articulating the purpose for the business, so that the people in your team know where we're going and why, right? Of course, they have to align with that. If they don't align with that, don't even hire them. Get rid of them, right? They need to be energized and heading in the same direction. So if you got that, and you make sure you reinforce that and you live that authentically, you get the right people. The second thing is to develop the values, right? The criteria and live them too. Make example of it, but develop and I do this in workshops with clients, is what are the 5 to 8 core values for your business, right? And we're not talking about trust, integrity, just the standard corporate things that really they're the ones that a business just should have by default, right? So we talk about the ones that are meaningful for your business. I'm not going to get into those now, but you define them. And the key about defining them is that if you can really articulate them and you drill them into your team in a fun way, so it's like it becomes part of the presentation, it becomes part of the communication, you really focus on those and you give them to them as a framework, they'll use that to measure everything and make their decisions in the business, right? So you don't have to micromanage them. You point them in the right direction, give them a project and the outcome that you want, and just give them the framework to go, and they'll deliver and they'll surprise you. And it's interesting. At least I've been quite surprised when I've just trusted team members, and it's a thing. I think it's for every business owner, everyone that's had grown a business from small to large, is they feel like it's their business, and no one can do it better than them, right? So I've felt that, and I've watched, and I've smiled a lot lately just watching conversations transpire or getting a report of it, and just going, yeah, that was handled and well, better than me getting involved, quicker than me getting involved. So
oh my God. Yeah. Oh my God, I resonate with that. I've learned so many lessons on that as well. It's like I'm the only one who can actually create quote pictures out of my quotes within an article that I've written, because I only know what's really good in there, first of all, and then I only know which kind of layout I like. And then at some point I was like, it was way too much for me, so I gave it to my assistant and I said, just go with it. Since then, I mean, the quote picture look like 10 times or 100 times better than ever before. And every time she puts up one of these pictures, I go like, oh my God, this is incredible. Also because she's a woman, I'm a man, I'm not that good with colors and stuff like that. I just think that she is this, I mean, she's just so much more creative in these senses. And yeah, so this is brilliant. So like, okay, so what I find interesting as well is that your talent, and I would even say unique ability, maybe the word branding is not deep enough, but I'm just going to use it now, because for me, you're the branding guy. When it comes, you're the branding storyteller guy, really. You're that for me. And it's interesting how that reflects not only in the work you do with your clients, but in everything. Because what you just did is basically, I mean, how do you get your employees to work for you? Well, you do branding storytelling. That's what you just did when you talked about aligning people with a culture, making sure the values are clear, making sure their values are aligned. I mean, it's got everything to do with that. So that's another thing that I found interesting, because very often, especially with people who are not that clear on their role in life, like when I mean life, I mean basically every aspect of business and even outside of that. That's what I mean by life. With people, very often the challenge is maybe they're really clear in their role with their clients, but then they think they need to have another role in their business. And I just did a presentation with the professional speaker circle on LinkedIn recently, and I told them, they were struggling with making these high-level connections and with other things in their business. I said, just be the speakers. Just be the speaker, because that is your natural role. Your natural role is the brand storyteller, and you are the brand storyteller when you're hiring people, when you're working with clients, when you're making business development, when you do strategic planning, in every aspect of your business. And I think it's just something that I picked up that you do really well
thank you.
Well,
thank you. Yeah, it's interesting once you It's something that I guess subconsciously I've created in myself purposefully, especially if you give it to yourself as a title, right? That's the, we went through this exercise with your Link Revolution as an interesting title, something that will appeal to the right kind of person. And when I came up with that one, I was like, I do that, but authentically, I need to do that in every aspect. So it's interesting that you picked up on that, and I'm grateful that for the compliment there.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that is so huge, especially with people that that don't see themselves as CEOs right now in their business. It's like, maybe they're a coach or a consultant or a speaker or like a service provider. And then there's a lot of other aspects in their business besides serving clients, right? Because they feel that their role is serving clients, but their role is serving. So they're serving their purpose, they're serving their clients, they're serving their team, they're serving themselves. Now we've got a different game. Yeah.
It's interesting you say that, and I guess people have a story that they tell themselves of what dealing with a certain, or dealing with the accountant is like, or dealing with the lawyer is like, or dealing with the employee is like. That where are we getting these stories from? Is it what we've seen in a movie somewhere? Is it how we've seen our parents treat someone before? What we've heard about this? When it's a story, it's just a story. But how can you change that story? Yeah, let it go and just be yourself, like you're saying, be authentic, and that's where the real you will come out. So
and that's where we thrive. And then suddenly, leading a team becomes fun and not a drag. Suddenly, maybe not doing your finances, but sometimes maybe also doing your finances becomes fun. Every aspect of your business becomes fun because now you're in your natural role, right? So that is, I think that is huge. So, okay, so there's like one key question that I have. I want to dive a little bit into that. Like, if you could go back a couple of years, before you became as wise as you are today, if you could go back in time and talk to yourself back then, what would be three? Let's take three. What would be three golden nuggets of wisdom that you would give yourself?
Okay, there's something that happened today that was a conversation I had with my wife today, and I think the essence of it is key here. Now, there's a motorway about 2 kilometers that way, right? There's a motorway, and there's a way to get onto it from the main road, and it's like you turn up and you turn right onto it, right? Or that was it, right? And you get stuck in traffic and go up this way, and it was just the road is awful and it's always chock-a-block, but that's the way we went, always. And I'm talking every time I went onto that. And when you come onto it, you come around a bend and there's a lane that merges in with it, right? So for years, I'm driving around this bend and merging with cars there, or having cars merge in, and never thinking about it, right? Until recently, my wife found that there's a way to cut over and loop around and come back onto that merge road. So you bypass this sitting in the traffic, which is it's terrible, right? So we just go up the back way, go across, round and up like that. And we did that this morning, and she's like, I can't believe that I've been doing this for years, right? And I said, yeah, the worst part is that we're merging with the cars. So neither of us, and here's the takeaway, neither of us stopped to ask, where does that come from, and is that a better way? Right? Observe, is there a better way to do this? Right? So the comparison I have now is there a better way to do my business? And I'm asking myself that question a lot now, whereas before I was just like shit, there's a lot of stuff to do. Let me just do it. Right. So the 2 years ago was just keep doing it. Like something good will happen. Right. The thing that I'm after, it'll just happen. Just keep focusing on doing the business. But years went by doing that.
Okay. So yeah.
Now it's like the quality of the questions that you ask, and is there a better way? Does technology allow me to do things differently, more efficiently? Can I outsource stuff or leverage stuff? You know, the quality of the questions. Let go and ask yourself. So yeah, I would ask myself. Actually, I wouldn't have listened back then. So, but if I had to, it would be find a better way, challenge the model. And we're in an era of disruption, right? We've got to disrupt the way that we're doing our own business. Otherwise, we will get disrupted by somebody else. So I think I've found the way that mine's going to work. You know, deliver awesomeness worldwide, no matter where people are, using all the technologies and with a 24-hour on, right? Because my people are in all time zones. So think about that. Access wherever you are to an awesome team to sort your branding out. Right.
So here's another thing that I picked up. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe it's wisdom piece number 2. Be grateful.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Just pick that up.
Yeah. That's the key. It's, you know, every day it's about picking out what the things are. Talk about the quality of the questions, right? So a practice that I do with my wife at dinner, and I'm going to be teaching my son to do this as well, is what did you learn, right? So we take turns while we're eating, and it's we sit at a dinner table where my last relationship, my last life, we would eat at the coffee table or just not even together, which is probably why I'm not together with that person anymore. But questions, what did you learn today? And it's really about acknowledging the learnings, right? So it's a good back and forth. What did you enjoy, right? Acknowledge the things that were fun. What did you achieve? You've got to tick these things off. And if things happen in the day that you were cool and you smashed, right? But if you don't think about it, you don't access the memory, and it's not activated. You just let it go, and at the end of the week you feel like you haven't done a whole lot, but you really have. And then what are you grateful for? What did you contribute? So learn, enjoy, achieve, contribute. Right? So knowing that just subconsciously that we're going to ask these questions, you look to do these things in a day. And then what are you grateful for? So 5 questions. It's good. It ends the day awesomely.
Yeah, so, absolutely. And I think that, you know, that is even, I mean, that's so much bigger than 3 separate pieces of wisdom. I think these 5 questions, can we repeat them again? It's what did you learn today?
Yeah.
What did you
enjoy?
What did you enjoy today? What are you grateful for?
Grateful is the last one, but we go over them again. So it's learn, enjoy, achieve, contribute, and grateful. Yeah.
This is becoming part of my journaling now, you know.
Yeah. There's a wisdom in that. I mean, if you look at Robbins, he would write down if you're doing RPM planning, right? So you set your plan for the day, and at the end, stop and review it and celebrate the things that you achieved. So I don't necessarily do that, but they get acknowledged at dinner time. So
I think that's huge. So
it is.
Okay, so first of all, thanks a lot for sharing your wisdom today. I think it was huge. I'm gonna find the right title for this, I'm sure. There's a lot of really key things in here. And let's finish it. What's the one key place where people can find you and connect with you, who are interested in learning more about you and how they can collaborate with you?
Yeah, for the time being, LinkedIn is the place to find me. So send a connection. I love the people that come as a result of seeing the videos with you, and I love hearing that somehow I've been an inspiration. I find myself to be fairly boring to myself, right? But if I can impact people's lives, if I can help in some way, ask me a question, connect on LinkedIn, send an introduction, say you're a friend, right? And say, like, in that message that you watched the video and you'd love to have a chat. I'll have a chat. I've free up time to talk to people that are cool. So reach out via LinkedIn. That might change later, but yeah, get in touch, especially if you want to be involved in any way with like Brand Light or the Sponge, or if you've got some way that you can help me change the world, then yeah, let's have a conversation.
I think that is huge. And I think that's something that I'm going to start putting into these videos as a key purpose, for people to create more collaborations, because I think this is so huge. I think maybe there's another key lesson. We're not sharing our vision big enough and enough times, because if we did, we would never have a lack of people supporting us. And I know we all do have a lack of people supporting us. And I mean, that's how I got to speak at TEDx. I was basically just talking to potential clients saying, my dream is to speak at TEDx. And she was like, hey, let me connect you to 2 organizers. Okay, great. Yeah. And I think that's like when we keep sharing our vision and what we're building and what we're learning with others, people want to be on board. People want to, because when we do that, we are leaders.
Yeah.
And great leaders don't create followers. Great leaders create other leaders. And I think when we share that vision in that kind of sense, I think that is huge. So I just wanted to end it with that. We're going to link to your profile below so people can connect. Yeah, cool. Once again, thank you so much for doing this, and have an awesome day.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks a lot, man.
Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye.